Hi, I'm Brad from HPS Music Archaeology. Happy Halloween. Today we are talking to Alan Howarth, the great Oscar-winning musician who has had a fantastic musical career as well as a brilliant career in the movies, making both soundtracks and soundscapes for some fantastic movies, including the Halloween series, Escape from New York, the Back to the Future series, and all the Star Trek movies. Alan's a fascinating guy, as you're about to find out. This hour-long chat stretches from his early career as a musician, supporting bands like The Who and Cream, to working with Weather Report, and then moving into the movie business, where he worked with the great John Carpenter, who we've spoken to in the past, our friend, and also worked on the Star Trek movies, Back to the Future, Dracula. It's an endless list. He also talks about what he's up to today, and believe me, it's fascinating stuff. So I think a lot of you that watch the show regularly are going to really enjoy this. So sit back, listen to us waffle for an hour, and listen to the brilliance of Alan.
Doing name conversation this week.
Hang on, let's be professional now. Remember, we're on the BBC. Right, ready, Rusty?
No, I think we can do it.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks, mate. Sorry for that. Appreciate you taking
No, sorry. I just want to get someplace where it was quieter. That's all.
That's good, Matt Panner. Thanks a lot. But thanks for taking the time anyway. So what we do is we do a blog on YouTube, which we talk to people about their musical life, and predominantly it's usually about record collections and the music that got them into music. But we've had a lot of crossover over the last couple of years, where we've spoken to people much like yourself about their musical history, and it's had a little bit of crossover into film. So we've spoken to Lalo Schifrin, and we've spoken to John Carpenter as well, and we're excited to be speaking to you. But what we usually ask, we're pretty informal because A, we're amateur, B, we're disorganised, and what we normally ask is, what got you into music? Where did it start? What was the crux of the thing that made you go, I want to be a musician and not a baseball player or a part-time model or anything like that? So
no part-time models for me. Yeah, all right. So let me give you there's a deciding moment, and I think you guys want to hear this story, but let's just give you the lead up.
Okay.
So when I was in kindergarten, in grade school, and up to high school, I was going to be an artist, painter guy. I was very good at drawing and illustrations, and I was attracted to that.
Yeah.
But in the background, I found this old accordion in my parents' attic, like when I was 5, and I just was fascinated by sound. And so I asked my mom for accordion lessons, and she got me lessons with a local guy that was sort of a local cowboy on-screen TV star.
Excellent.
And he gave accordion lessons. So I remember, starting up with my pop 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 pop. You could do one hand or the other. I finally got to the point where I was going to have a lesson where I got both hands going, where I could go pop 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 pop. And so I went down to the guy's basement. My mom took me there, and I'm sitting in the one room in his basement, and I'm playing, and I'm kind of there, and there's no teacher. And I play some more, and there's no teacher. And then I'll say, who knows how long time, but then my mom comes in. She goes, "We're leaving." I'm going, "What?" She goes, "We're leaving right now. Let's get out of here." And that was it. That was the end of my accordion lessons. Well, years later, I found out that this guy put the moves on my mom.
Oh, brilliant.
his name wasn't Harvey Weinstein, was it?
No. It was probably whatever. But that sort of put the kibosh on my music career. Early on, I had a little thread there going, but because of Harvey Weinstein type people, it didn't happen. So then it comes to be like the 4th grade, and they're soliciting people that have music talent. One, to probably want to rent musical instruments to the parents for their kids, but at the same time start the school band and stuff like that. And I remember going there and getting a note that I came home with my mom saying, "Mom, look, I have musical talent. I want to get an instrument. I'll get an instrument." Well, then I had to look at the what was offered in the school system, and there was no pianos and no guitars. That was just non-starter. So I looked for. First, I was attracted to the bassoon because it would look really cool, But then, across the whole panacea of what's in the band, the saxophone got my attention. So I pestered my mom, and I got an alto sax.
Right.
So while I was being Mr. Artist in high school, in the background I was playing alto sax in the band, and then the marching band, and then we had a dance band, which was very, attractive to me. That got closer to where I wanted to go. And because I was a big kid, they put me on baritone sax in the dance band.
Mm.
And then sort of the oddest of, the universe has funny ways of lining things up. So I'm in the art class junior year, and this other artist, a lady named Kathy, says, "Hey, Alan, I know you play saxophone. My buddy Dave has a band, and they're playing a sock hop at the girls' Catholic high school. Would you want to sit in for the evening?" So, sure, I guess. So we sat in a sock hops, and we played these dance band music down, reading charts. And at the end of the night, he says, "Okay, here you go," and he hands me $80.
Wow.
And my eyes went wide, like, whoa. I sat here for 3 hours and made $80. I'm going for music, forget art. And that was the deciding moment. I sold out for $80. So then Dave also had a rock band that he was sort of going, and this was just before the Beatles, so this would have been 1965.
Right.
Yeah.
Before, they were there, but American culture hadn't caught up yet. We were just all fans.
Sure.
And so we had what we call greaser bands that were more on the idea of Elvis Presley and Jerry D. Lewis and those kinds of songs. But he needed a bass player. And I went back to Mom and I pestered her to buy me a bass guitar. And I got a $100 bass guitar at the local music shop and a Sears Silvertone bass amp, because that's what we could do out of the catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down and had a quick lesson in how to play bass, and I figured it out real fast. And so I'm playing bass now in Dave's band, which was called Exterminators, one of those kind of names,
Right.
And we played actually at from that band I went to a band that was in my high school called the Monterey's, and this was sort of a half step. With no one was a greaser band, we were a surfer band, right? So now the Beach Boys and stuff like that were cool. And there was a band in this is Northeast Ohio, Cleveland area, West Side. And there was a band that got very popular called the Tree Stumps, and they were a Beatle band. They actually grew their hair, longer and didn't put real cream in it, and they were where I wanted to be. And it turns out that the drummer for the Tree Stumps, it was a brother band. There was the Jankowskis, Ron and Russ were the guitar player and the keyboard player, and Courtney was the drummer, and then there was a bass player named Gary Harrington, who was like my idol. He was like the cool guy, and he actually had a Vox Super Beatle amp, so he was like the ultimate.
Yeah.
But it was funny that I actually had an appearance close to the drummer Courtney, and this guy Gary Harrington they were going to have a fallout with him. So Courtney picked me up one night, unannounced what was going to happen, takes me over to the other musicians' stand. We go in the basement, and he's got a bass guitar, and he says, "Hey, you're in the band if you want to be in the band." So all of a sudden I got to join the Tree Stumps, and the Tree Stumps was really the launch point for feeling like I was in the serious band business. There was the Vance Johns was the dad. We actually won a battle of the bands in Cleveland and opened for Paul Revere and the Raiders at in the public arena, and started feeling like we're happening. We had a record out on our own label, just a local thing, but we were on television, so things started cooking along. Right. Then, as all bands things go, I drift off. We had a new lead singer named Woody Leffel, great singer, and he and I split the Tree Stumps to do our own band called Renaissance Fair. Right. And we were very much into the San Francisco movement and the Doors. Sure. Woody was Jim Morrison II. The guy can really sing. I mean, he's still that good today. He eventually even had a band called Granicus, which became a famous rock band in the local area. Right. But so I did Renaissance Fair, and then another phase. The Tree Stumps now modulated into a band called Silk, and they get signed by Bill Simzik of ABC Records, who also was the producer of Joe Walsh and the James Gang at the time.
Oh wow! Okay.
So the bass player from hold on, that's my puppy marking the mailman. So the bass player, a fellow named Mike Gee, who's like the songwriter, and I knew Mike too. We were all buddies, from the same neighborhood. Elects to go off on his own thing, but the band's got a record out on ABC Records, and they're gonna do some touring. So I rejoined the Ghost of the Tree Stumps, now called Silk, and we opened for the Who, on 1971 for the Tommy Tour, several venues, and I opened for the Cream also on the Wheels of Fire tour. So now I was feeling like I was going to be a rock star. This was a totally happening thing.
Well,
but as the usual thing with the the band business, if the band doesn't get a hit and take off, or even if it does, eventually there's internal stuff and things fall apart.
Sure.
So I went through a long period of deciding that I wanted to play original music, write my own songs, and at the same time started working in that music store where I originally bought the bass guitar, a place called DeFiore's Music, which is the rock mecca before Guitar Center of America.
Right.
Yeah.
And worked there and bought myself a synthesizer. Bought an EML 101. So this was my thing. I got tape recorders. I got a synthesizer. I had my Stratocaster with 2 Echoplexes and a Leslie. I was basically the Pink Floyd of Cleveland. And my sound guy, we were already playing in quadraphonic. He had tape cues to play of explosions and effects during the set, and we were nested in a little crappy bar called the Smiling Dog Saloon, but we were like every Tuesday night we got to play, so we were regular and we had our own fans. And then the business of that Smiling Dog Saloon is they were actually into jazz, and he would book all these national jazz acts on like Wednesday and Thursday as they were coming from New York to Chicago to make a Cleveland stop. He'd get them cheap and they'd play for a couple nights. So because we were the house band, our sound system was set up. So we wound up doing the sound for all these national acts, and one of the bands to come through was Weather Report.
Massive.
Wow.
And so Brian Risner, who was my sound guy, did the sound for him, and I was in on it. We put echoes on it, and we gave him a real number on it. And they went, "Who are these guys?" You know. And the club owner says, "Well, the band was called Braino. You'll like this."
Yeah.
So the Braino band was the house band, and they invited us to go out on the road with them, because they had no roadies. I mean, Joe Zawinul was on his keyboard. It was Miroslav Vitus, and Eric Gravatt, Wayne Shorter, obviously, and Daum Ramov. So that was the band at the time.
Sure.
And I had a job, so Brian wasn't working. So Brian went out with Weather Report and became their house sound guy, and eventually first roadie. And he was with them, all the way to the end. And so along '76, the band is now going to go. They have Heavy Weather come out.
Yeah.
And Joe Zawinul's rig has now become fairly big. There was an Oberheim 8 voice, 2 ARC 2600s, the Rhodes, Help Is Still piano, pickup, and it was getting enough that it was too much for him to manage. So he invited me to come out and be Joe Zawinul's keyboard tech with Weather Report. So I did that 1976 to 1980.
Right.
And that was Jaco Pastorius, Peter Erskine, Wayne Shorter, and Joe. And I traveled the whole world. I mean, it was
unbelievable.
It was better than joining. It was better than joining the army for seeing the world. I mean, I got to see the world from the back of the bus. But all of Europe and South America and Australia and Japan and all over the U.S. and Canada. So it was great. It was a great period and a great time to be around those guys. That was their golden time.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the oddest of circumstances, again, just universe delivers of stuff. This burly biker buddy of mine from Cleveland named Pax Lemon, who knew me from when I was doing my synthesizer jamming in Cleveland, gets a job at Paramount Pictures in Hollywood, and I've now moved to Hollywood because of Weather Report.
Yeah.
He comes over, and I'm working on my wife's student film, and I'm doing the music and the whole soundtrack. He sees me doing this, and a couple weeks later, he's in Paramount. He's in a transfer base, just making copies of tapes, tape to tape, or tape to mag, stuff like that. Making. It was before digital, so everything had to be physical. And these 2 sound effects editors behind him, a fellow named Stephen Flick and Richard Anderson, are having a conversation on how they need somebody that knows about synthesizers to work on this movie they're on. Pax leans around and he goes, "Oh, man, you got to talk to my buddy Alan, man. Yeah, he works for Weather Report." I go, "Weather Report, is that the one at 7 o'clock or 11 o'clock? It's the Weather Report." They didn't know what Weather Report was. But they were really nice guys. He was a nice guy, and he kind of explained what was going on. They figured it out. And he gave my number, and they called me up and said, "Hey, your buddy Pax says you know about synthesizers. You want to come up and meet with us? We're looking for somebody to work on this movie." So I go down. Turns out they're working on Star Trek: The Motion Picture. So this is the moment of Star Trek coming from TV to film.
Yeah.
And they asked me to make an audition tape, and one of the auditions is to make the sound of the Starship Enterprise going from warp 1 to warp 7. There's a scene to this big acceleration. So I'm back in my dining room. I got my little Prophet 5 and my TAC 4-track tape recorder, and I dial up an effect to me that's a Starship acceleration. I turn it in, and that became the sound of the Enterprise.
Just like that.
And that, just like that, I got the gig. And so my first movie was Star Trek: The Motion Picture as a sound effects person,
Right.
Amazing.
not as a musician, but it's all the same stuff. I'm sitting on the same gear. It's all
Sure.
the same to me. I mean, I'll do whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting part of that first Star Trek is the picture editor, a fellow named Todd Ramsey. His next assignment is Escape from New York.
Oh.
And I had been given Todd my tapes, and he knew what I was, and I did a good job. I mean, I went for 5 stars on that because it was such an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so originally I started on Escape from New York again as a sound effects person, and I brought in the sound effects editor, fellow named David Rudolph, who I knew from a movie called Battle Beyond the Stars.
Yeah, of course.
But then the sort of the window of opportunity arrived again, and a fellow named Dan Wyman, who John had worked with on The Fog and Halloween.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but John was looking for if there was anybody else out there. Todd introduced me to John. John came over to my dining room again in this rented house in Glendale. But by now I was fairly set up well. I mean, the pictures you see like on the back of Halloween 3, that was the setup at the time. So there was
Sure.
2 ARP Avatars, and an ARP Quadra, and a Prophet 5. And I had my 8-track tape recorder. Eventually we rented a 24-track. But, and then the big addition for Escape from New York was a Lynn drum machine. So the Lynn drum machine, I hooked up to the ARP sequencer, and I was Mr. Sequence, and my first film score was Escape from New York. So talk about blessings. I mean, so that really launched me with Carpenter, and he went on to do The Thing after that, and turned to me one time at the end of the mixing of Escape from New York. He goes, "Hey, Alan, oh, by the way, I'm doing next one is The Thing. I'm too busy. They're going to do a sequel. You do Halloween." So I got assigned Halloween. It was not like anything. It was just like a homework project. Go do Halloween for me. I'm too busy. So then he went off, did The Thing, and I did Halloween 2. So I got John's original score from Halloween, which is on 16-track.
Sure.
Transferred it to a 24-track, and the tracks weren't really filled up. It was kind of sparse, maybe 8 or 10 tracks most. So I had a bunch of open tracks. So I basically overdubbed into John's original Halloween score, which became Halloween 2.
Right.
So the same music, but I gave it the more of the gothic, darker texture and added beats and stuff like that.
Sure.
And that was sort of my flavor. And then we get to he's done with actually at the end of the thing he came over for one had some pickup cues because he had already done the two versions with Ennio Morricone, and there was just a couple things pickups that he wanted, so we did that. And then it came to Halloween 3, and this was the first time John sat down as the composer, not having to be the director, whatever. And I remember sitting down with him, and we listened to the latest Tangerine Dream record. This is all still on vinyl.
Sure.
And just to kind of get tuned up on what there was in the world of synthesizers, because they were the guys. They had the best gear and had the best, most appealing things. And then John looked up and he goes, "Hey, Alan, this is going to be really, really easy this time. We're just going to rip ourselves off," which is his way of saying, "Hey, I just loved what we did last time. Let's just keep doing that." So that became the birth of Halloween 3. And then after that, we had Christine, Big Trouble in Little China, They Live, Prince of Darkness that I did with John. And then I went on to do the sequels of Halloween 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
Wow.
So that was that whole 80s period of scoring music. And like I say, in the background, I was a Pink Floyd guy, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Moody Blues for sure. I loved all the concept album stuff, Genesis.
Yeah.
And then Kraftwerk was definitely a thread in there. Tangerine Dream was already mentioned.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. This moody, sound effecty textures. I wasn't about a million notes. I was about playing 2 notes, but really doing something with them.
Yeah.
It's funny. We used to say that about Wayne Shorter and Joe Zawinul. Joe Zawinul would sit there and just blast out notes. I mean, scales, and then Wayne would come up and play 2 notes and just dominate the because of his expression and the emotion versus the machine. So I was drawn to that stuff, and I'm still doing stuff today. I'm not dead yet.
That's good to know. So obviously you were so busy in the 80s with a lot of scores going on. Was you still doing gigs on the side? Were you still doing stuff yourself as well? Or was it just too busy?
Yeah. No. I still did my own work, and also I remember I had a budding sound effects career. So I did Star Trek 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, so
Back to the Future 2 and 3.
amazing.
We got an Academy Award for the sound effects for the Hunt for Red October.
That's right.
Yeah.
Got another Academy Award for the sound effects on the Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I was really strong as a sound effects person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because at the time the orchestral thing was really the dominant force,
Yeah.
they started looking at synthesizer music as cheap music.
Sure.
I mean, it's like so the budgets. You know, if you're going to do something cheap, fine, get synthesizer. If you're going to really do it, get the orchestras, and that was fine.
Yeah.
I kept in touch with James Honer, who was the composer on Battle Beyond the Stars.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we stayed buddies for years after that, you know, because we both met each other when we were kids.
Yeah.
So you know, I was very familiar with that stuff. But it's interesting now. Here we sit in 2017, and
Yeah.
these guys doing the Stranger Things
Yes.
Yes.
TV show are basically emulating everything me and John did,
Yes.
using the same gear, the return to analog,
Yeah.
and the what those machines do. And I'm working on a movie right now called Hoax.
Right.
And the director shows up and he goes, "Look, actually, I did a sort of a temp score for him using all the digital samples, orchestra, and this, that, and this, and that." And he says, "That's really cool, man. But could you do what you used to do with John?" And he's kind of asking me to go back to the analog sound, which I get is retro now, but it's the sound that goes with those kind of horror movies that makes a
Exactly.
complete package
Yeah.
that is very appealing and sets the mood.
Yeah.
And things where you just literally hold one note for like 30 seconds going, nothing happened, just a note. Maybe a couple other tones, you know. It's like we used to joke about Carpenter being 1-0 Johnny. but since then, an excellent, superior musician, a partner of mine, John Novello, years later, he says, "Alan, you get more out of one note than anybody I ever met."
Well,
Which is his
Yes.
compliment to me.
is a compliment. When we spoke to John, we did say that we mentioned the Stranger Things thing as well, because I mean I can't remember the band. I've got their album, but they've done a couple of albums, so it was a sound they'd gone for. But we actually said their genre of music is John Carpenter. Obviously, what we should have been saying is their genre of music is John and Alan. But but it's absolutely.
Well, let me sprinkle a little clarity on that, because when John came, he was John Carpenter already. You know, he had already done Halloween.
Yeah.
He agreed to share with me and be partners, and I asked that in the beginning, and he was fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, you've got the director of the movie writing the score for his own movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm the engineer to start with. I got to make sure all the synths are working, the tape recorders are working, the tape's loaded, da 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 da.
Yeah.
And you know, in the beginning we didn't have synchronization, but we could run a videotape, look at it, and then kind of, you know, push play on both machines and see how it worked. So I was all the technical stuff. In fact, he wanted to know nothing to know about the technical. Sometimes I'd explain technically, he goes, "I don't even want to know about it. Don't tell me." You know. So he sat down. He took the first pass most of the time, because it's his movie. He knows the cuts. He knows where the music needs to go, and he's John Carpenter.
Yeah.
So I had the privilege of going to an exclusive school of one, sitting in a room with John Carpenter for almost a decade, watching him do his thing. And the man is gifted with themes. In fact, that's what he picked up at the end here. We talked about the lost themes. He plays these simple themes, but they communicate the whatever it is that is the message in that particular piece. And he continues to do that today.
Yeah.
Well, on the backside, I was Mr. Technology. All the sequencing and the drum machines and all the production was definitely me, because he didn't want to know anything about it. He sat there watching me do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the axe falls. But then about Halloween 3, like the opening Cherries to Pumpkins, that's me. That's me doing my thing in front of John.
Right.
So he was letting me to really stretch out, and, you know, the lead line is mine. And if you listen to another soundtrack I did shortly after that called The Lost Empire, you'll hear the part of John Carpenter and I. That's me. That's me on my own. So that really establishes where like I say, where if you had to slice the two. But I think it's really the integration. It's the two of us having a blast.
Yeah.
It's like the most fun ever to do that stuff. At the time, we're just two guys, you know, in my dining room in Glendale. Nothing formal, no big studios, and he liked it that way.
Yeah.
He was his experience with big studios, I'm sure he told you, it was not a successful action.
Yeah.
In his
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And so now he can do his own thing. And now, I'll take credit for getting him off the couch and out on the road, because my first live performance of the music, I played the Halloween 30 convention. They had asked me to speak on a panel about music for Halloween. I said, what? Instead of talking about how do I play it, and they go, you could do that? I said, yeah, man, yeah. So I brought my laptop and a MIDI keyboard, and had part of the stuff pre-recorded and part of it I performed on top, but I played it, and somebody went ahead and put it on their cell phone, and put it on YouTube as Alan at the Halloween convention. Then all of a sudden I'm getting calls to go to. I went to Poland, I went to France, I've been in Germany, I even played St. Petersburg and London, performing this music, and it was fun. I teamed up with a band out of Paris called Zombie Zombie. So a couple times I actually had the three of us, rather than doing a solo, it was me with Zombie Zombie, and we do the John Carpenter music, and that was really great. So we started that, let's see, do a year here, so 2012 maybe.
Right.
So I could just see Cody and Daniel, his son and godson, kind of, Dad, Alan's out there playing your guys' music. Why can't we do that? I could just see it. I wasn't there. I'm speculating, but I could see that being an impetus. So hey, he's out there. Why don't we go do this? And John, wanting to pass the legacy to the boys, agreed to it, and it's fun, as he probably told you. He does music now because making a movie is too much hard work.
I'm sure.
Whereas he's relaxed at home with the boys in the studio making music. He's having a blast, and he's out. They're touring here in the U.S. for 3 weeks, and they're selling out. And so this whole legacy of the Carpenter music continues.
And it's great. We went last year to that on Halloween to see him in London, and it was a fantastic show. Fantastic show. It really was.
Do you have any plans to come back over to the UK and play?
I would love to. I just need people to invite me and set up the tours. I'm available.
We'll sort that out. Don't you worry about that. We'll sort that out.
Please book me. There was one show that was going to be fantastic, and it didn't come together. It was 2 Halloweens ago. You were going to put Goblin and have me be the opening act.
Oh, amazing.
Do it as a major show, but they just couldn't get the funding, so I wound up playing at Chapel. It was
It's the chapel in North London, isn't it?
Union Chapel Church.
Union Chapel.
Yes.
Yeah. So I played on Halloween 2 years ago there, and that was fun. I had about 600 people, and they set up the scene, and I did 2 nights. One night I actually played the score to Escape from New York.
Oh.
Wow.
To the movie.
We actually have that very vinyl record right here.
Yeah. Right in front.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. And then on Halloween I did a set of Halloween music dedicated to Halloween, plus my standard set, which is a montage of across the whole catalog of stuff I've done. So that was fun. So yeah, I'm available. I'd love to do it. Love to do more. It's a blast for somebody heading for 70 to still be out there playing music that I made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys are loving it, and there's an audience for it, and like I said, I ain't dead yet. I'm going to keep making more.
You sound very much alive.
You sound very alive.
Well, I tell my kids I'm going to live to be 150. That's my goal. So I'm not even halfway yet.
I hope you make it, mate. I hope you do.
Definitely.
Well, there's every reason to believe that if you wanna,
totally.
You have a life that you want to continue. That the medical, the DNA, all that therapy is going to be there to make that stuff available.
Yeah, I think what keeps people going.
If you wanna.
Yeah, I think what keeps people going more than anything is purpose, and it sounds like you've got a lot of purpose, mate. So that's a positive.
Yeah.
Alan,
I have another whole thread that I'm working on beyond what we're going to talk about, the film music.
Sure.
I'm going to give you the summary, and then I'll tell you guys. I'll tell you where to go look and find out more.
Okay.
It started out with a book about the mathematical measurements of the Great Pyramid.
Okay.
A book by it was a self-published book, a fellow named Wes Bateman. You can't find it anywhere. With like 200 copies, but fellow Jeff Harris over at Village Recorders gave it to me. He says, "I know you're going to love this." I read it, cover to cover, $800, 800 pages. And at the end of it, he said it was frequencies described by the Great Pyramid. And I went, what? So I dialed the guy up. I said, hey, man, I just read your book. Well, one, he was thrilled that somebody read his book because it was out there. But then liked it and did the follow-up. Well, it turns out this guy Bateman, in the 60s, used to give lectures in Silver Lake about UFOs. He was one of the original UFOs guys.
Right.
And Gene Roddenberry and company used to come to his lectures to learn about this whole lore of UFOs. And if you asked him who he was a Federation contact. He was telepathically able to communicate with extraterrestrials. And the whole concept of the Prime Directive, the United Federation of Planets, all this stuff was this guy, Bateman.
Right.
Really?
Which has never been recognized. There's a whole other story here to be told.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, eventually the UFO business got a little too crazy for me. Went to the desert and outside of Las Vegas and wrote this book.
Right.
So anyhow, I read the book. We talk about the frequencies. Eventually, I get to be buddies enough with him. And he's a science guy, so he's got a bench oscillator that's got frequencies out to like 6 decimal places.
Yeah.
I sit down with him. I have a little Ulysses keyboard here, and I have a piano sound up, and it's tuned to A440. So we all know that standard tuning of the note A is 440 cycles. It's been that way since around 1925 when it was standardized, and there's a whole discussion about 440. But let's just park that for a second. So he dials up the frequency of 423.997 cycles, roughly 424.
Yeah.
And he says, here's one of the notes from the pyramid. So I was going boop, and I'm on the piano, and the piano's a little bit higher. I go boop, I get a boo doo 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 until I match up I detune the keyboard so it matches up to the oscillator frequency. And I sit there and I play the piano for a few minutes. And I look at it and I go, golly, this sounds like an 18th century piano. And he goes, you're right. I go, what do you mean I'm right? He says, this is the Renaissance tuning. And I did research. The first tuning fork invented in the year 1711 by John Shore, the royal trumpeter, tuned to 423.5 cycles.
Wow.
Intuitively, with no computers or measurement.
Right.
The first tuning fork was 423, and that was the standard.
Amazing.
Well, it turns out Mozart's tuning fork was 421.5.
Yeah.
The Paris Opera was at 420 whatever. Handel was 422. And out of the pyramid math, the center of a range of frequencies from 421 to 427 is all described by the pyramid.
Jesus.
And that turns out to be Renaissance music.
Unbelievable.
Well,
That's crazy.
So you're going to like this story. So I tell this to a fellow named Dr. J.J. Hurtak. He's the author of a very famous book called The Keys of Enoch,
Right.
which is a book downloaded to him from Enoch, who was the seventh patriarch of humanity and the grandfather of Noah. Well, anyhow, he downloads this whole thing to Hurtak. Hurtak's got an organization called for the Academy for Future Science. I tell him the story, and he goes, Alan, you're onto something. Let's prove it. And he arranges me to go to the Yucatan, and I do pink noise samples of over 200 Mayan rooms, create a database of Mayan resonance. Over 60% are not tuned to 424, they're tuned to 432, which is the other part of the sacred geometry, the five frequency. So if you look at your hand right now and you call the tip of your finger one unit, and you compare that to the length of the next part of your finger, it's 1.6 times longer, or 5 times longer. So if you were to make music that appealed to the human body, physically, for muscles and kidneys and stuff like that, you should be tuning your music to 432. And the people that are into sound healing have tuning forks for all this stuff.
Jeez.
Well, the other part is the 424 business, and that whole area of the nine variations is actually 9 variations he came up with mathematically from the pyramid. Another guy comes forward named Dr. Alan Sheets, and he's got an organization called New Equations, and they teach about soul types. And there's another Egyptian thing that there's 9 soul types they teach us, and he goes, we got 9 souls, you got 9 tunings, I bet you there's a correlation. He tested on 300 people and came up with that the frequencies that came out of the pyramid correlate to our chakras. So It turns out that the root chakra is 421 and the crown chakra is 427, and you as an artist can now tune music for love, to tune for the heart, or for babies in the belly, or for rocking out with the hips and the whole thing down there, or to have religious experiences in the 427, or to sing at like 425, 6 would be good things to sing with. So there's this whole other expansion of what to do with the music. So that's why I'm going to be around for the next 150 years.
Excellent.
That's fascinating.
That is great.
So anyhow, I have one website up that's starting to disseminate this information called naturalresonance.net.
Okay.
Cool.
Naturalresonance.net. So everybody check out there.
Yeah.
And I've also patented and I'm developing apps so that people can now take their stuff in their phone and convert the frequencies to their body and their chakras for their own experiences. So I have a product coming out too.
This is revolutionary stuff.
Oh no, it's super exciting. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to share it with you. So anyhow, go back to your questions. I'm sorry I digressed.
No, that was
amazing.
That was like an additional bonus we didn't expect. That was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And usually we end up with a lot of conversations going on after these shows go out. And I imagine there's going to be a lot of conversation about that and a lot of fascination. So that is phenomenal. And
and then my website alanhowarth.com will also have some of this, and then a link to the expansions, because I'm probably going to make an app specifically for classical music.
Sure.
Because if you want to listen to your Mozart, you should hear Mozart tuned to Mozart's original tuning fork, right? That was what he created. You should experience the real Mozart. And there's a whole thing called the Mozart effect in the world of sound therapy that's very real. So I'm gonna go to the American Music Therapy Association in February and tell them about all this stuff.
Amazing. I have a feeling, Alan, that you'll be over here because of this as well as because of your music.
I think a lot of people are going to want to have seminars about this.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. What a blessing to be allowed to be myself.
Yeah.
People hire me now to do the music I used to do with John Carpenter years ago. And I got this whole other thread of sharing with all of the world of music and healing and spiritual growth, that there's musical frequencies that are very beneficial, and it does way better than A440.
Yeah.
This is like some sort of musical Indiana Jones thing that's going on.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It's a good story. Probably should. I got to write the book.
I think you should, and make the film. And do the music.
I'll do the music for sure. There's another guy over on this side, fellow named David Wilcox.
Right. Yeah.
And he's an evangelist in the He's got 3 books, and he's really talking about what he's called the source field. So separate from naming it God, what is the universe made of, and where does it come from? Also, he's really on it with the world of science and spirituality. I really listen to him a lot. So he's written a movie, and I'm going to see if I can collaborate with him on his movie too. So 2 books: the Alan Howarth story, which is all the stuff we're talking about, John Carpenter's, the Steven Spielbergs, and the Zemeckis', and then the other part is this adventure in frequency.
Oh, well, that's fantastic.
I think that's the title of it right there.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, I'm very extemporaneous. So best to just turn me on and let me talk.
Yeah,
mate, you are a fascinating guy to listen to.
Yeah, definitely.
You would go down very well in an English pub.
Oh yeah. But you guys can have your beer. I'll have wine, but that's all right.
You can get those in a pub as well. Don't worry.
Good wines in pubs these days. I want to ask one quick question. I'm conscious of your time, but I want to ask one quick question, and it's going back to the very beginning of where we started talking, because I thought it was important. And even though it's not music related, what happened to the art? Is the art still a passion that burns inside you?
Yes, actually, I've modulated my art to photography. Just taking the time to sit down and draw or paint is challenging. We're all got fast-paced lives and we're doing all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I have a tremendous collection of photography, and I'm an excellent person with that stuff. Right. And as a subset, one other plug, came to my attention that there's this whole phenomenon in flash photography where you get pictures of these balls of light called orbs.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
I have a whole orb collection from the whole world. I have the most amazing orbs.
Really?
All kinds of orbs. And for me, they're consciousness.
Sure.
They can be either disincarnate humans. It can also be remote viewing from other parts of the galaxy or universe, kind of checking us out like a remote camera. that they're putting a consciousness presence here, or
Are these
I don't
online
know.
anywhere?
There's more to go, but it's definitely not dust on the lens. It's real.
Yeah. Have you
And I
got
have
these
one
photos?
picture
Oh, sorry.
Of the master. When I went to the pyramid, we took a picture in the pyramid, and over top of the sarcophagus, floating like on purpose, I have a picture of the master orb of the Great Pyramid.
Wow.
And this is totally interdimensional. So normally when you get pictures of orbs, they look like round balls, and every now and then there'll be like a secondary energy field, maybe a tertiary around the edge. This one had 9 bands, and it was as big as a beach ball.
Wow. Oh my word.
Jeez.
And it's got geometry in it. I mean, this is all interdimensional. It really, the whole matrix thing that we're down here in some sort of holographic simulation, and there's more up there, all truth, for sure.
Wow.
And have you got these? Have you shared these pictures in the sense of in a book or in a gallery or?
No, just somebody sits down. For most people, it's too far out. But
Yeah.
it's time. It's time to bring it forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something. I mean, I think if you've got such a vast collection, I think that's something that people would want to see. I think that's something that needs to be shared. I think that would be a fascinating book. I mean, that's something I would buy in a heartbeat.
And they're all different, and they're from all over the world. Egypt was full of them. I mean, the amount of souls that still remain in Egypt are still there. I mean, all the pyramids and the sacred sites, the archaeologists, are all crammed with orbs everywhere.
Oh,
and then and then every now and then somebody's looking at a picture. They're in a forest or something. I was the other part. The other part is they could be part of Earth energy.
Yeah.
Because some of the first ones I got, I had a house up in San Francisco, and I was digging out underneath the garage to make a studio.
Yeah.
So I had all this excavation going on, and it was full of orbs where I dug the earth out, almost like it was like earth waves. And then when you take a chunk off, it comes like a bubble of whoop.
Yeah.
And now it's formed a ball. So it could be Mother Earth too.
That would make sense to
Or all
me.
of the above. I mean, I think it's all of them. I think there's no limit to the flavors of this stuff.
Well, it's definitely not lens dust.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely not lens dust.
Yeah.
And I got a newer camera for Christmas, and they've tweaked it so they don't catch the orbs because people were complaining about it.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. So if the flash and the lens and the shutter go simultaneously, you get an orb.
Yeah.
But if you flash and then delay the lens opening just a hair, you won't get orbs because they're in that 800th of a second.
Yeah.
Because the light is flashing, reflecting off of them, but then the reflection is gone almost instantaneously, and then normal pictures, you don't have that problem.
Right.
So it's such a problem that, like I say, the camera business had to adjust.
Yeah.
So it would be in all the flash photography.
Wow.
Fascinating. Was you taking lots of photos when you were on the road with Weather Report and working on a lot of movies as well? Or?
No movies. I do have a pretty nice collection of Weather Report backstage stuff.
I bet that's amazing.
Yeah.
That hasn't seen the light of day though. So there's another picture book there. I have one picture of Jaco Pastorius, which is ultimately his final portrait.
Right.
That's never seen the light of day too. It's just one day when I caught him being Jaco, just being the normal guy with no bravado, no external enhancements, just being Jaco the guy.
Yeah.
And he had like a gray hooded sweatshirt on and just gave me a look, but his soul came through in that picture.
Oh, amazing.
So I owe the world that one.
Oh, that's
Definitely.
that's a beautiful thing to have, mate. By the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I jump in with one quick question?
Sure.
I'm a huge Halloween series fan. I love a lot, and I just wonder when you sort of took on 4, 5, and 6 on your own, without John being with you. Was there anything that you sat there and thought, right, I want to do something? What was going through your mind at the time?
All right. So here's the sequence of events just to wrap it up. So I did Halloween 2 as a homework assignment.
Yeah.
We did Halloween 3, which John and Deborah wanted to depart from Michael Myers and go off into an anthology where they could do a Halloween, different Halloween every Halloween, and that would be the product.
Yeah.
Well, the clamor after Halloween 3 was, "Where's Michael Myers?" And John and Deborah didn't want to do it anymore, so they went to court over who had the rights to make more Halloweens, and the original producers, Mustafa Akkad and Erwin Yablans and Joe Wolf, won. So now they're going to make more Halloweens without John and Deborah.
Right.
Obviously, they'll get, the deal was, just send me a check. I don't care what you guys do anymore. They kind of like threw up their hands. So they invited me to be the composer on Halloween. And I remember sitting in a scoring session with John Carpenter. We were working on Big Trouble at the time. And I says, "John, they asked me to do Halloween. I want to know how you feel about that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be sneaking around. You're my buddy."
Yeah.
So he looked at me and says, "Alan, you do what you want to do, man. But I got to tell you, they're not nice people.
Yeah.
No.
Not that I want to perpetuate stuff, but they have a different agenda and a different culture because they've got a cash cow.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
money drives all their decisions, and all that Halloween 4, 5, 6 navigations. Mustafa Akkad was a great patriarch. He was very nice to me.
Yeah.
Treated me well. I can't say that he was ever a bad guy, but all their other dealings with other people I've had stuff, and then I'm not really embraced by the current Halloween community. I'm part of the old stuff. Although I understand John's going to executive produce the Halloween for next year, so
That's right. Yeah.
there'll be another wave there, and I imagine him and Cody and Daniel will do the score for it.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it could be a great production. I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
there was I don't know if he mentioned it to you, but there was in the trades that whoever wrote, they came up with a script that finally got John excited enough about doing another one. So
Right.
there's something special there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said there's some exciting news. I can't quite tell you yet, but it's exciting news. and
Yeah.
when I heard about that, I thought, well, that was that then. So.
Yeah. So it's like I say, being with Carpenter was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and I'm still somewhere in the wings, cheering him on. But I'm doing my own thing now.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Other
You've got a lot to
things
do.
to know. Other things to know. I've been working in video games.
Oh, wow.
I was in Electronic Arts in 2001, 2002. I became the chief audio officer. I was in charge of all the sound for Worldwide Studio. It was a very heady position.
Wow.
But I decided I didn't want to be an executive because I'm an artist.
Yeah.
So I wound that down, and still doing independent films and stuff like that. But I just did 2 years with a company called Magic Leap,
Right.
Okay.
and this is the third generation of virtual reality. So in
Yeah.
virtual reality, we're used to the idea you put on the thing and you're out of the world you're in, and you're in this digital world.
Sure.
Yeah.
The next one is augmented reality, which is sort of the Pokemon Go thing, where you got your cell phone, there's a video camera, and they insert digital characters into your video screen. So it's a composite of video and digital characters. Well, mixed reality, which is the next one, there's a product called HoloLens, which is already out. It's some sort of a head rig. I'll call it goggles. But you put it on, you still see where you are. You're still in the room, but now holograms are projected into the world with you.
Right.
And so there's this whole combination of the real world and the digital world, which I've seen it, man. It's world changing. It's world changing. It's a total mind blow. It's so cutting edge. Doing whatever we already do with it is a given, but thinking about what else you could do with it.
Yeah.
And this is where the artist in me really comes out, the idea of the holographic visuals and sound that move in space and interact, and characters, and very exciting stuff. So that's also got my interest. So that's in the background too. So I really, because I'm a techno guy,
Yeah.
all that stuff excites me. So
Yeah.
technical artist, I guess, what you could say.
Cool. That
Yeah.
excites me too. I've got VR, and I've seen the demos for HoloLens, and it amazes me. So, and and it's nice to hear of real creative, of artists working on these things, and not just engineers. It's because the artists that will take it to the next level, they have the imagination. So it's great to hear you're involved in things like that. So
Yeah. I'll definitely have some contributions. I've got some very cutting edge ideas already, which will manifest over the next couple of years. Because the technology, is good already, but it's always going to get better. It's kind of like the cell phone. I mean, it was the first cell phone compared to a Samsung or an Apple product of today.
Yeah.
And just imagine that just going to continue to be more and more powerful.
It is, man.
And then when we get to fiber optic connections in our houses, and we got these high speed, almost unlimited, no delay things going on, and massive server farms doing all the computation for these things. It ain't over, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There's lots to come.
Alan, I think you're definitely going to have to live to 150 just to get all the projects done that you've spoke about tonight. So.
No. So do you have some other questions? I didn't mean to steer your conversation, but
I think you've answered everything without even us asking a question.
Alan, you have been a truly wonderful guest. I think we've had some great guests on this show, but none as fascinating, I don't think, mate.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a bit stunned because I didn't know what you never know what to expect when you interview somebody, but when you know that you could sit there and probably talk to them for 4 days and still not be bored, that doesn't happen much.
We go into stories, the background stories of this or that or this or that. I mean, all through the Hollywood camp, and then the Weather Report world.
Yeah.
And then in the '90s, one PS, in the '90s, I started a fellow named Steve Taylor. We started a project called Dimension Audio.
Yep.
And the idea was to make sound systems that would make immersive sound. So the idea was, what would it take to make the sound that we hear when we're just sitting here in the room come out of speakers? And the answer is, well, you'd put a speaker everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we started the whole concept of sound pixels. And this is 1995, 6, 7. We were already doing sound systems 48.6.
Wow.
And we were putting them in for theme parks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I showed my system to Ray Dolby, AES show 2001 in Los Angeles. And Ray Dolby came in and looked at it and he goes, "Wow, this is a very ambitious project, young man." Well, meanwhile, guess what we got today is Dolby Atmos. So I will take credit for inspiring what we got today as the ultimate theater sound. I'm already past that. I blew past that stuff. Let them make an industry out of it. I'm not interested in running Dolby, but definitely my artistry already saw the future.
Sure,
and now I'm in another future with these other experiences. So just a cutting edge guy doing my thing. I'm excited to wake up every day, guys.
Sounds
like it.
Yeah.
And sure, shit happens and stuff, and whatever. The whole thing is, unfortunately, in this world right now, money is God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually have a tune that's in my thing called Lord Money. It's a whole thing about bitching about money. But they got us. They got us. You don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't live, you don't drive without having the money to pay for it. And when you think about it, the only legal discrimination on planet Earth is economics.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I can't say anything about you for your any personal attributes, color, race, speed, beliefs, whatever. But if you can't pay for it, get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it like that before. That's true.
Yeah, so that's how the world is run, by money, and obviously now the money system's been hijacked by the Federal Reserve and the G12, and what is it? There's people. What was it? 54 people have 99% of the money.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's scary, isn't it? I think it's always been that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really tipped over because of the amount of thing in it. Like I say, with the whole David Wilcox thing, he's got a show called Cosmic Explosion. They're talking about the secret space program, that there's already a whole other civilization off planet that's doing commerce with aliens and all this other stuff, and I believe it.
Yeah.
Really? What's that called again? Sorry. What's that show called again? Sorry.
David Wilcox.
It's called Cosmic Disclosure. You guys will love this. Cosmic Disclosure. It's David Wilcox and Corey Good.
Yeah.
And Corey Good was somebody that actually was in the secret space program, and has now come out blowing the whistle on the whole thing.
Right.
And they have a thing called Gaia, GAIA.com. It's like a subscription site, like a Netflix kind of thing, and all this kind of programming is in there. I devour this stuff. It's just
Yeah.
so like, yeah. And
Sounds
it's got
like
Ancient
Moonraker.
Aliens and all this other stuff. I mean, it's where my head's at.
Wow.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be checking all of this out after we hang up with you.
All right, so P.S. Conjure up some gigs, man. Let's come over there.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
At least do a couple of shows in London.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
let's go to Glasgow or Edinburgh or something, and
Wonderful places.
do a couple of weeks. And if I'm doing it, then I can make calls to Paris. Zombie might be interested, and
Sure.
Yeah.
find out talk to whoever's booking Goblin, and let's. I think it'd be great to do
I
a
think-
thing for Goblin because
We should do this.
technically I'm
Yeah.
pretty simple. It's just me and the laptop and a little keyboard stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
Well, we have a
I'm
lot of-
easy on and
yeah.
off.
We have a
You
lot-
leave it with us, Alan.
Leave it with us, mate. And we have a lot of promoters
Yeah.
that watch this show. We have a lot of promoters. We've done a lot of gigs based on this show, and we have a lot of big London musicians come on this show. So I think people watching, I think that something will come from this. But you leave it with us, mate. We'll be talking to people.
I think if we pencil in Halloween for next year,
that'd be a
Yeah,
nice
let's see what
one.
happens.
That'd
Yeah.
be nice, wouldn't it?
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Way fun. Yeah.
excellent. Well, hopefully we'll meet you next year.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're
Good guys.
we're expecting invites to your 150th birthday party.
That's
mate.
right. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. No, we'll start the list now.
Brilliant.
We'll do 75, 100, 150.
Excellent.
Oh, cool. I'm
Excellent.
looking
That'd be
forward to
great.
it, mate.
So we've only got a few years till 75. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
cool.
good. That's 75 years young.
Yeah,
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, so what? 75 is your golden? Is that your golden 75?
I think 75 is the new 40, mate. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll have to recast the elements. We'll go to trinium and unobtainium and things like that for the ones after
That's it.
Excellent.
after diamond. I think we got to go farther.
Yes.
Alan, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. It really has been.
Sure.
From this, I did not expect some of the wonderful conversations we had, but what we've got here is absolute gold, and I can't wait to share this with the world. And we're going to share it on Halloween, so we'll let you know. But really, really appreciate it. It's lovely when you hear such wonderful stories from someone that's so friendly, earnest, and unassuming. That the world. Some people say that you got to be lucky in life, but I think you make your own luck because of your character, and that's certainly you,
Definitely.
mate. Yeah. So,
Yes.
No, I agree to all my buddies out there that are artists and musicians. I'm telling you, it's 50% talent, and the other 50% is your relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, mate, you can see how you've done well, mate.
If you're one of these guys that's just so full of yourself, and I'm amazing, and and you're an asshole,
Yeah.
you won't get that far.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much
thank you
for
ever
your
so
time,
much.
mate. You've been very generous with your time to
Sure,
us
guys.
and your stories, and we'll speak soon, mate.
Yeah, are you going to transcribe this at all, or just say as a podcast?
No, we're gonna. Yeah, we put this on YouTube. So what we do is we'll play. What we tend to do is play some of the. We'll do a little bit of an introduction, play some of your stuff, and then we put this onto YouTube. So we'll let you know as soon as it's ready.
But it should be up around about Halloween.
Cool. I'll put some links on my website for
Oh,
you.
you're a star, mate.
fantastic.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it, Alan. Once again, mate, have a lovely week, and thanks so much for talking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel like we're friends now.
Yeah, I feel like we've got a real bond going on.
Let's do it, man. And happy Halloween.
Happy
You too,
Halloween.
Jack.
Thank
Take
you.
care, buddy.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye.
Bye bye.